Have you heard the news about Omega's movement that they're resurrecting, the 321? In my opinion, Omega is literally about to make it rain. Watch the video. And we are back. You're chatting with John P. Today, I am excited, and everyone else is excited, and I know I'm the last one to talk about this. We are chatting about the 321 Omega movement that they just announced that they are re-releasing, at least in some capacity. So, oh, by the way, the intro video, what I mean to convey is that Omega is printing money. We're going to talk about it near the middle of this video, so it's not completely ridiculous. It does mean something, and we'll get to it, so make sure to watch the rest of the video and subscribe, because future videos are going to be very cool, and we're going to be following this topic very closely as it develops in the coming months. And we actually have somebody that we're very close with, an insider on this one, so we will have some interesting piece of information as time goes on. But, wristwatch check, JLC, Jaeger LeCoultre, for some of you out there that are ripping on me for calling it the Jaeger LeCoultre. I'm still calling it the Jaeger LeCoultre because that is how it's called in the place that I live, Jaeger LeCoultre. JLC for short. This needs more wrist time. Anyway, moving into the topic before you get bored. The 321 movement. Now, for those of you not familiar, the Omega 321 movement is a movement that has been made iconic, been made popular, been idolized, basically because it was the movement that, that went on the moon. Buzz Aldrin wore this thing as he went out there and did his thing. And actually, that specific watch, fun fact or obscure fact, I guess, is that that specific watch went missing when he was shipping it off to a museum to put, I think in the Smithsonian actually, to be, forever, displayed to the public as the moon watch. His moon watch was stolen from the post office, and it's out there. Someone has it. Or maybe he was just like, oh man, like, what am I doing giving this watch away? Like, this is the moon watch. And then he just like stole it from the post office. I don't know. Anyway, it's gone. It's out there. Look for it on eBay. Video on eBay stuff. Check out my description for the link. 321 movement. Here's the thing, guys. We need to talk really quickly about the 321 movement and the architecture behind it. It's a column wheel chronograph movement. What this means is there's basically a wheel in there, a column wheel, and it has these sharp teeth, more so and sharper than a normal gear. And the problem is when you produce that, there's little burrs of metal that need to be filed down by hand. And while the movement looks prettier than the predecessor, the 861, which we'll talk about, it takes a lot of work to produce. And it took Omega a lot of produce in the late 60s. It took them a lot of time to produce these things, and they just didn't want to do that anymore, right? And they knew that these things would be coming back on warranty claims, service claims, because the gears and the teeth, they snap, they break down, they're sharp. It's nice to look at, and it's just a cool movement. And also when you hit the pusher, it's a little more smooth. It's not jumpy like some chronographs, right? Like if you have a 7750 or something, it's a little jumpy, it goes, and it's jumpy. This is not that jumpy, and it's cool, and it's nice, and it feels like you have something, which is why it was, used originally. But the problem is what I just mentioned, the things I mentioned. So Omega said, we're done with that. We're going to the 861. They came out with an 861. Actually, I have the first 861, not the actual first. I mean, who knows which one that is, but I have the 861, 1970 Omega Speedmaster. It is cracked a little bit, waiting on the crystal, which is actually very hard to get the original crystal for this, by the way. But I won't bore you with that. Another video. So they moved on to this 861, okay? And this is a cam or a cam lever chronograph. And the improvement really here, I mean, some people consider it an improvement, some people don't. There's a debate about this on the internet, and feel free to debate about it in the comments below if like that's your thing. I'll chime in. It's kind of interesting. So you have these levers, and the levers they basically accomplish the same thing, or nearly the same thing that the the column wheel gear accomplishes. And so that's good. That's a good thing, by the way, in my opinion, because here's the thing. With levers and in engineering, the way that it's engineered compared to the 321, the 861, these levers allowed for more variance. So when you have problems, when they start wearing down, you have a greater degree that there could be problems with that, or it can deviate further away from the original specifications rather, and still achieve the same output and still function. And so for Omega, that was something that they just had to do. And remember, these cam movements, they were easy to produce. They were less sophisticated. They were going to stand the test of time a little bit better. And so for Omega at scale, this made great improvements for them in their assembly line and their production. I mean, I hate to look at watchmaking like an assembly line, but I mean, that's business processes, right? And so they had to look out for their own, and they had to look out for, honestly, the customer with the long-term maintainability of these chronographs. They were tools after all, and now they're kind of like pieces of art, They were tools originally, right? It was on the moon. They were timing things. Landings were like walking around, picking up rocks, like whatever these astronauts actually do, testing little thermometers and who knows what. But these were tools, and so Omega was really looking out for the consumer. Sure, they were saving money and producing these things, but I would like to think that that was passed on to the consumer by allowing these movements to last such a long time. So this, for example, this 861 that I have in my pocket here, 1970 861, no problems at all. This has all the original parts. It's been fully taken apart and looked at. No problems at all. Everything is weared evenly on the inside of this watch. Everything. It totally looks completely original on the inside of the watch. And when you have a 321 or an old column wheel movement, I mean, things have to be replaced. All the time things break, and it just kind of creates a huge mess on the inside. I really need to have Hans come on here and talk to you about this. But that's a problem, guys, right? And so I can't blame Omega for doing that. But what I think is very interesting is that Omega now decides to come back out with this movement that they desperately wanted to get away from, even though they have such great technological achievements with their current movements. So I find that interesting, right? And so when Omega releases this press release saying, hey, we're coming back out with the 321, we've been working on this for 2 years, it's like an exact copy of it, and we have a specific production facility that we're going to be making these things. I don't know if I can say that I think there's at all a possibility or a chance that they're going to be putting these in all their Speedmasters. I just don't see it. I mean, they have movements that they've been perfecting. Their coaxial movements, they've been perfecting for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, probably. And when you consider that they're just going to drop it for a movement that was out in the 50s and 60s, that just doesn't make sense to me. And so I could see them probably putting this movement in watches that are limited edition, limited run, limited production, right? What you see with Omega is there's a bit of a trend with their Speedmasters. You got the Tintin, you got some of the Apollo, some of the Moon watches, some of these other Speedmasters, and they've made a bit of a business out of it, right? I'd love to see their production numbers and their cash flow statements for Speedmasters alone, because they're printing money. Speedmaster's never been higher. You've got the Alaska project, you've got all these Speedmasters. You got the Ed Whites. I mean, sure, that's an old Speedmaster. Forget about that. But you have all these newer Speedmasters, and they're limited editions, and they're just fetching exorbitant amounts of money. And I think this is just Omega trying to cash in a little bit more on that. And notice that the release was very vague. It's like, oh, we've got this production facility that we've been working on for 2 years. Newsflash, here's the thing with 321 movement, guys. The 321 movement, if you have a problem with it and you send it into Omega, where does it go? Not your local Omega service centers. They have local Omega service centers that work on the Omega watches, and they take the easy stuff. They take most everything. But when you have a 321 movement, let's say you've got a Speedmaster with a 321 movement. It breaks, it doesn't work. You only want to trust on sending it to Omega, even though other people can work on it. You send it there. They have to take it to Switzerland. And where is it? It's sent to the same city that their production facility currently is in. Now, I'll admit, I don't know everything about Omega's production facilities, their locations, where everything is produced. I'm sure it's very distributed like most manufacturers. But it's just, I don't think it's as big of a release as we all are thinking. Now, sure, it's very interesting, and it's certainly, I'm excited for it. I know that many of you, if not most of you, are excited for the 321 coming back. But I really see it as Omega just kind of grabbing a few bucks that they can while they can, and riding kind of the watch train before maybe there's a downturn in the economy, as some leading economists have suggested. Anyway, I will digress on that one and get back into the excitement, right? Like, what do you guys think about this 321? Are you as excited as I am? And by the way, I'm only excited because of the nostalgia. The technical functionality, I give or take it personally. I mean, the 861 and, the predecessors are just fine. I like the coaxial movement. It's cool, it's nice, it's a piece of art, but, I only see them really putting this in the limited edition runs, and for me, I'm not really a buyer of the limited edition speedies. It's just not for me. I know some of you are, and they're cool and they're collector's items, but limited edition speedies just don't do anything for me, even though they are very nice watches. So what do you guys think? Do you plan on buying something that they release with the 321? What are you willing to pay? That's what I want to know too, guys. Like, let's say that Omega came out with the Speedmaster. It just looks like a normal Speedmaster man on the moon watch, Moonwatch rather. What are you going to pay? How much are you willing to pay just for the 321 movement? Personally, I'm not willing just to pay much more than a normal Speedmaster hand-wind movement price for the 321. Are you willing to pay double retail, current retail for the equivalent? Are you willing to pay triple? I would love to know, because honestly, I'm sure that Omega would love to know. They're taking these movements and they're coming out, and they're going to have a price in mind, and they're going to have a retail price, and I know it's going to be high. It just has to. It has to be. Think about this: the serviceability alone. If the 321, the new 321 movement, whatever, they'll probably call it like the 1321, because that's kind of what they do. So let's call it the 1321. They're going to come out with this, and they're going to have problems. They're going to have to get sent back. They're going to have to go to Switzerland. I bet Omega probably has not, that's something to think about, actually. Will they give parts to the distributors and 321 parts for the local repair centers? If they will, that changes things up, because now the local guys can service the vintage 321s, and that's a game changer and will allow some vintage watch collectors to revive totally their old 321 Speedmasters, which is that is probably the best thing, now that I think about it, in this scenario, is that the vintage 321s, if the parts are interchangeable, and they need to be, otherwise it doesn't make any sense for them to come out with like a pretend 321. That's cool, right? Like, if you have a vintage 321, now a local guy can service it. I'm more excited about that, because, as we see, the information is very limited. I'm excited, but we're all excited because we don't totally know why yet. But it's like seeing like one of those like Basel ads where like everything is grayed out, but you see an outline and everyone's like, oh, that's this, that's that. Like, that's kind of what's going on, but even less information. So leave in the comments, guys, what do you think? Please give me some comments on this one. I want to talk with you. Are you willing to pay more, willing to pay less? How do you feel about the column wheel compared to the cam, if you're into the movements whole thing? What do you guys think on this? Let me know. Anyway, short video, guys, here, just talking about this because it is kind of a hot topic, and I know I'm the last one to speak about it. So we'll see you on the next video, guys. You've been chatting with John P. Ciao.